Good morning. My name is Shasta. I am the training manager for Girl Scouts Heart of Central California. Shasta is my camp name. And I have been telling stories each week. I work for the Girl Scouts Heart of Central California. And as Girl Scouts, we really are trying to introduce girls to the outdoors, entrepreneurship, life skills, and STEM careers and activities. And so today I found a story about entrepreneurship, which is when someone creates something and starts a business with it. And so the story today is called Adrianna's Chicken, and it's an original story by Anne Schraff. Jorge was a poor farmer who lived in Sinaloa, Mexico. After his hardworking wife died, Jorge and his 3 children struggled to make a living. One day, Jorge gathered his children around him and said, "We only have a little money left. We need to invest it wisely. Go to the pueblo and choose something that will make life easier for us." Jorge gave some coins to his oldest son, Carlos, and said, "You are my eldest son, and you are wise." "Gracias, Papa," Carlos said with a proud smile. Jorge gave some coins to his second son, Roberto, and said, "You are younger, but you are also clever." "Gracias, Papa," said Roberto. "What about me?" cried Adrianna, Jorge's only daughter. "Don't I also get some coins?" Jorge smiled at Adrianna. "You are very sensible, my daughter. But what do you know about spending money wisely?" "I work side by side with my brothers on the farm," insisted Adrianna, "and I shall make a good choice." So Jorge gave Adrianna a few coins too. "How foolish," grumbled Roberto. "How silly," snapped Carlos. Carlos was the oldest, and he had the longest legs, so he sprinted ahead of the others. When he reached the town market, Carlos saw vendors selling fruits and vegetables and also animals. "We have no horse," Carlos thought. "It would be fine indeed to have a horse. He could pull our wagon, and Roberto and I could ride him." Carlos didn't have enough coins to buy a really fine horse. The best workhorses were too expensive, so Carlos had to choose between a very old horse or a wild horse. He decided on an untamed, beautiful black and white horse. "I shall gentle him," Carlos said to himself, trying to rope on the horse to lead him home. When Roberto got to the market with his coins, he looked at sheep and pigs. He had enough coins to buy a large pig. Said Roberto, smacking his lip. "This pig shall grow fatter when we feed him. Then we will dine on pork and ham." So Roberto brought the pig, tied the rope around his neck, and led him home. When Adrianna got to the market, she counted her coins. Her father had given her the fewest coins. One vendor was selling beautiful blue and yellow parrots. Although Adrianna admired the parrots, she knew they would not be a wise purchase. Instead, Adrianna bought 2 hens and a rooster in a cage. Then she headed home with the cage. When Carlos and Roberta saw the 2 hens and the rooster, they laughed so hard they fell on the ground. "Silly little sister," Carlos shouted, slapping his thighs. "Look at those scrawny birds. They aren't enough to make a decent dinner for us." "Quit teasing your sister," Jorge said. "She is just a little girl. She does not understand about buying animals." Adriana just smiled and built a wire coop for the birds. And then she watched Carlos train his new horse. When Carlos climbed on the horse's back, the horse bucked, threw Carlos into the dirt, and began to run. The wild horse leapt right over the corral fence and ran toward the mountains. Carlos and Roberto ran after the horse, but the chase was useless. The horse was gone in a cloud of dust. Roberto grinned and said, "You made a big mistake, Carlos. Only I made a good decision. Soon my pig will be big enough to eat, and what fine meals we will have." Adriana fed her 2 hens and her rooster and paid no attention to her brothers. Soon the hens began to lay glossy white eggs. Adriana gathered some of them, and her family had fried eggs and scrambled eggs and omelets. At last, Roberto's pig was big enough to eat. Jorge and his 3 children dined on pork and ham for many days, but then it was all gone. By now, fluffy little baby chicks followed Adriana's 2 hens around the barnyard. Adriana had not taken all the eggs. The hens sat on some and hatched big broods of baby chicks. "Ah," Jorge cried, "we will have many chicken dinners on Sunday. Arroz con pollo, pollo frito." Adrianna smiled quietly and built a bigger chicken coop. Soon the baby chicks grew up and they were laying eggs. So Adrianna took baskets of eggs to the market and sold them. After a while, they had so many roosters that even though Jorge and his family had chicken every Sunday, they had enough roosters to sell. We have never had such a good life, cried Jorge, and it all because of Adriana's chickens. But Adrianna had little to say. She had even bigger idea. She had cooked so many chicken dinners for her family that she was now an expert. Everybody said Adriana's chicken dishes were the best in Sinaloa. So Adrianna put Carlos and Roberto to work, building a restaurant in front of their house. It was right on the highway, and soon many people were coming to taste Adriana's polo. Adriana wore a big white chef's hat, and her long, glossy black hair was tied in braids. She had to hire someone to help her cook and wash dishes, so she hired Carlos and Roberto. Her restaurant made so much money that Carlos and Roberto could afford to buy a fine horse and many pigs. And even though her brothers had laughed at Adrianna when she brought home those first 3 skinny birds, Adrianna didn't say, "I told you so," except maybe once or twice. So in this story, Adrianna was kind of charged with figuring out a way to make money for her family. And she thought of an idea and it got bigger and bigger. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They're people who have an idea and they look at what they can do to take their idea and turn it into a business. Now, sometimes entrepreneurs fail as they're trying new things. You can see even Roberto and Carlos had ideas and that didn't quite work out. And that's just what it means to be an entrepreneur, to try new things and to see what works in order to create businesses or services that people need. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, I recommend checking out the financial badges in your Girls Guide to Girl Scouting. They talk a lot about how do you make money and save money, and also how can you use your money to help others, and even how can you be an innovator and come up with solutions to problems. I hope you've enjoyed this story and that you have a wonderful day. If you haven't discovered Girl Scouts yet, check out girlscouts.org to find a Council New Year and to look for activities that you can be doing at home.